Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Today I want to talk to you for 5 minutes about the printing press. Okay, this is going to be tricky, but I'm going to do my best. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, many people say the printing press is the most important invention after fire and the wheel. And there are many arguments that agree with that. I mean, do you read? Do you read books, newspapers, magazines, textbooks, adverts, posters? Everything pretty much we have in the world around us has been made because of the printing press. Do you know anything? Do you have knowledge? That's because of the printing press. We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay. A long time ago, when people first started to read, we used to write on scrolls. Now, scrolls are very good. You can roll them up and you can store them, but scrolls are very difficult to read. You have to unroll them, very long, very difficult to read. Also, when you do store them, they can crack, they can rip. They're not very strong. After scrolls, we have codexes. Codexes are collections of vellum or papyrus or different kinds of papers bound together. Those are a lot easier to read and they're a lot easier to store, of course. However, we didn't have printing presses back then, so any book you wanted to buy had to be handwritten. Any copy of the Bible you have before about 1436 was written by hand. Basically, usually monks, because they were educated, would spend their whole days praying and then copying from Bibles or books. They would have the original copy here, handwritten, and they would copy it verbatim onto another manuscript, and that became another copy of the book. So if you wanted a copy of a book, you had to hire a monk to copy the book for you. Very, very expensive, very, very time consuming, and of course sometimes the monks make mistakes, so you get changes in the books. They're not quite the same as the original. Obviously you cannot mass produce books that way unless you have millions and millions of monks. Then we start printing. In the beginning you have woodblock printing. Woodblock printing works very well. You put the paper down, you have a carving, you put ink on it, bang, you print it. That's easy. Of course, though, if you want to carve the picture or the writing, you have to basically literally carve it into the wood. You cannot change it easily. If you want to do another page, you have to carve another piece of wood. It takes a long time. Then in 1040 in China, they invent ceramic type. This is movable type. That means you can change the characters. It makes it very, very easy to print a page. 1377 in Korea, we have the first real book written with movable type, printed with movable type, I should say. Of course, the problem with Chinese and Korean languages, though, is they have thousands and thousands of kanji, of characters. If you want to write a book, you have to have all of these characters. The advantage of English, of course, there is with the Latin alphabet, we only have 26 letters. So you can make words much, much more easily than you could in China or in Korea. So 1436, Johannes Gutenberg, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, he invents the printing press in Europe. Why then? Why did it suddenly happen then? Well, in Europe we have we have an increasing merchant class. We have wealthier and wealthier people. And what these people are interested in is knowledge, basically learning. The merchant class came around because of the horse collar, as you would know, of course, if you'd seen my talk about the horse collar. We also have the invention of real paper that comes across from China into Europe around about this time. We also have inks invented, and we have reading glasses. Of course, it's very difficult to read if you cannot see. I'm starting to realize that myself around about now. So we have reading glasses. So the environment is ripe for the invention of a printing press. Now, Johannes Gutenberg, he comes up with a few things. He makes a press based on an olive press. So basically just a press like that. He comes up with oil-based inks because he realizes that regular inks don't stick to his movable type characters. And he comes up with a way of casting the letters. He was originally a goldsmith, and he came up with a lead-based alloy that we still use today, which made casting the movable characters very, very easy to do, and they were very, very, very clear. So he made hundreds or thousands of different characters. So it then became a simple task to print the page of a book. All you had to do was arrange all the characters in place. I mean, it took a long time, of course, but it took a lot less time than carving a block of wood. 45 seconds. Okay, so once that happened, he creates the first real, after the Chinese ones, of course, the Korean ones, of course, the first real printed book. He makes the Gutenberg Bible. Right now there are 49 copies, not all of them whole, of that Bible in existence. At the time, if you wanted one of those Bibles, it would have cost you about 3 years' salary, which was a lot of money, of course. However, if you wanted to buy one of those now, if you could, if one came up for sale, it would cost you about $35 million. Occasionally single pages come up for sale, and you can buy those, and those cost hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own. So keep a lookout. You might find one day, you never know. Now, with any technology, of course, once it's introduced, once it's created, it starts to snowball. Now, printing, of course, takes off, and time's up. I'm going to keep going. I'm sorry. I keep doing this. I'm very sorry. I'm going to keep going though. It snowballs. It spreads across Europe. It spreads across the road. It spreads across the world. Soon you have printing presses in most of the major cities around Europe. In the 15th century, we have 2 million printed manuscripts. By the 16th century, 200 million. 17th century, 500 million. 18th century, we have 1 billion printed books and manuscripts and documents because printing is taking off. Now, so what, you might say? Why did I say it was the most important invention? Well, of course, because of the things that were introduced or made possible because of the printing press. The first one, of course, is the newspaper. With no printing press, you couldn't have a newspaper. With newspapers, you can learn about daily events. People can find out about world situations. People can act to change the world that they couldn't do before because they didn't know about it. Science takes off. People are suddenly able to publish their findings. Newton, for example, Newton's book spread around the world. People can publish their findings and people can do research based on those findings and they can find other things. Without a printing press, all you can do is talk to the people around you and hope it spreads through word of mouth. If you can publish a book and send it out, then your knowledge, your research, your findings can go around the world and that can snowball too. One finding can make thousands of millions of findings in other places, all because of the printing press. Literacy rates go up, of course. Before the printing press, if you wanted to hear someone read, you had to go to the church and listen to somebody read the Bible. Once we have the printing press, and once the price of books comes down, people can buy books, they can read books at home. Literacy rates go up. We have schools start to take off, because now you can buy textbooks. You can buy textbooks more cheaply. You don't have to have handwritten books. You don't have to listen. So the merchants, they start sending their children to schools, and worldwide knowledge starts to increase. Worldwide intelligence starts to go up. Worldwide literacy rates start to go up. Local languages, native languages start taking off. Up until this point, every book was written in Latin pretty much. But after this point, they start to use local languages. English, French, German, the local languages start to be used. Spelling is decided, finalized. Before the printing press, in England, you had about 6 different spellings for egg. E-G, E-G-G-E, E-G-G, E-G-E, different spellings for egg. Once you have the printing press, one spelling is chosen. And they stick to it. So spelling is unified. The merchants start to get richer because you can have record keeping. You can have more trading. You can have records of all the business you're doing. So industry starts to take off as well. You could even argue that because of the printing press, we have the Industrial Revolution that comes in a couple of centuries. In fact, that's definitely what happened. Because of the scientific research, it starts to snowball. In 200 years, thanks to the printing press, bam, we have Industrial Revolution. Thanks to the printing press, I'm talking to you right now here on YouTube because of the connected knowledge, because of the connected discoveries, because of the connections all the way down the line through history. Isn't that absolutely incredible? Okay, the first printing press, 1436, they could print 100 pages per hour. Now, a newspaper, you can print 100,000 pages an hour. The basic advance that made that, there are a lot of advances, of course. One of them was the engine, the steam engine, and then the motorized electric engine that make printers turn faster. But one of the biggest advances was using rolled paper rather than sheets of paper. Because if you use rolled paper, you can just have it continue, and it gets cut by a machine at the far end. It makes it much, much faster. I think a modern machine can do about 12 newspapers a second, I think. It's an incredible number, incredible number. Okay, but these days, of course, everything is online. We don't read newspapers anymore, we read online. We don't read books anymore, we read them on our Kindle. We don't read magazines, we read them on the internet. So the printing presses are stopping, of course. And we're moving online, which saves on paper, saves on ink, saves on a lot of things. But that isn't to say it's a waste of the printing press invention, because without that invention, we would not have the internet. We would not have that technology. We would still be living in the dark ages. So the printing press is probably the biggest invention after fire and the wheel. Thank you. Okay, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the section down there and I'll try and answer them. If you have any ideas, things you'd like me to talk about, put them down there as well. If you click on the link in the description down there, you can find the script for this talk, you can find questions and answers, and you can find the MP3 for download. You can practice writing, you can practice listening, you can practice all your skills if you want. Keep practicing your English, you will get better. If you liked this, click like. If you want to subscribe, click subscribe, and you can get these talks whenever I make them. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to have a cup of coffee and read the newspaper.